Okay, we are recording and live streaming when you are ready, Mr. Chairman.
I think I have 3 in my bag. I found some more. I was cleaning my truck out. I found a bunch more. I said, thought I got rid of them. So we are recording.
And we are live streaming whenever
Okay.
you are ready,
I
Mr.
will-
Chairman.
I'm ready. Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll call the meeting of the Isabel County Board of Commissioners, Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee. At this time, we will like to look at the agenda. Is there any additions or subtractions that need to be addressed?
I have no additions, Jeff.
And I have none. I see a hand up. Yes.
I will go and go ahead and actually voluntarily remove number 4 of my agenda items. I'm waiting for a clarification question from MIDC on that.
Okay, have any objections?
I have no objection.
Okay, we'll remove item 4 on the agenda. Is there any more additions or corrections? Seeing none, I will accept the agenda as amended. Okay, unanimous consent, so we'll do that.
I'm sorry, it was. It's done.
Yes, it's already done.
What's that? We can do that. Yeah.
I can't wait to read the minutes.
Yeah, straight down now.
Clean that up.
You'll clean it up just a tad. We're trying to catch up, so, okay, wait, before we get, okay, we got a call to the public. Is there anybody that likes to make a? We do have someone coming forward. State your name in case anybody's watching, so you are public.
Jim Newport, Community Development Director for Isabel. I'm here today to talk a little bit to you about the item number 5 that's on the agenda. It's not necessarily about item number 5, but it's about the policy that dictates item number 5. So I'm currently in the process of hiring an electrical inspector. I've been working at it for 4 months. We made some salary changes to that position to come into market to our market value for that position. I've had 5 more applications right out of the gate after we made that modifications than we had in our last hire a year ago, which was 1 applicant who I did hire. I've offered the position out over the last 3 weeks to 4 applicants, and all 4 of them have backed out on me because of the wage still. And that wage has been bumped significantly, in my opinion. But it came within what we thought was market. The current 3 of the 4 current positions bailed out on me because of the process in our policy that requires us to come to the board to get approval to start somebody above the very lowest level in the range that we're provided. So for example, pay grade 15 is where my position is. It starts out at 60,000 at the low end, top end is at 74. Policy tells me I have to hire that position at the bottom end of the scale. Unless the job has above the minimum employment requirements established for the classification, or if the outside labor market dictates it. And the authority is a recommendation coming from the administrator to the county board of the position. So it's your authority to allow us to hire higher. We've made some changes recently to our policies with regard to holiday pay and regard to PTO to help us attract people. This is another piece of the policy that I believe needs to be changed and to let department heads hire within that range to be able to attract employees. We're losing employees with this policy and the impact of this policy. What it would do is it would take it out of your hands, take the micromanagement side out of your hands. We as department heads hire and fire these employees, but yet if we want to hire them within the range that you've given us, higher than the bottom of the range, we have to come to you. So I would be asking for you guys to take a hard look at policy. I didn't print the whole thing, so I don't know what section this is, but it's on this page 10 of the non-represented personnel policy under hiring rates that forces us to people. Again, I'm not trying to skip by you guys in the process. I fully respect, and I think every department head respects the fact that we have a classification system and we're within the classification level. It's just the range you give us in that level forces us to the bottom. And again, I have 4 employees who have disappeared on me. The latest one was last night. The 4th one was last night, just gone. So I'm back to trying to hire the last guy I have an application for. If I don't get him, I don't know where we go.
Is it the state then? Like,
Well,
is,
we
what
can-
really, what
we
are our
can reach
options?
out- We can reach out to the private sector, we can turn it back to the state. Those are things that I'm sort of prepared for,
Mhm.
but haven't fully prepared myself
Right,
for.
right.
Because
How
I'm
do you?
confident we're gonna get somebody. It's just, we're really strapped. And the guy that I'm gonna be looking at now has been a master electrician for 20-some years. He's been an inspector down in the city of Roseville for 4 years. So he's got all the experience and all the abilities to be able to do it. But I'm gonna have to come back here to get that done if he accepts the process. So we're 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out from that even, coming to fruition.
You must be a mind reader, because I was gonna ask the public defender to, if we minded, I took a little time to discuss this, because I have some notes that we were gonna talk about policy, so I don't know where that came up. I wanted to bring that up before we got the public defender. How's it?
I'm not a mind reader, Commissioner.
Well, it's like, how do you know? Discussion on policy, I had some questions for administrator on that. What the policy is, because I think the public commissioners are confused and it's.
Would you mind if Director Newport stayed at the table for the discussion? Yeah. I think he'd be valuable to the discussion. I don't want him to think he's got to cram all his points into a public comment period. Mhm.
I hope you got a little bit of. Unless you want to go first and we'll have the discussion afterward. I don't know what your schedule is like. You hear me?
I don't think he recognizes that you're speaking to him.
Oh. What's your public
Public.
defender? Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, okay. Is your schedule where you need to get out right away?
No.
Okay, that's all I need to do and Cleve. Jump
Grab.
jump in the conversation, we would appreciate it, so. So let's go, before we even get into number 5, I guess we could open that up and then let's start discussion. Consider authorize the Isabel County Public Defender to fill the position of misdemeanor level assistant public defender at a higher than starting rate based on qualifications of supposed new hire. Okay. So I know we have a policy limit on.
I heard it.
Yeah.
I heard support
Oh,
over here.
support,
Heard
sorry.
it.
Okay, we're moving support.
Sure, I heard it.
Confused at what you're doing, but that's okay.
I wanted to open up so we could do discussion.
Motion to open discussion.
Okay.
I did read the thing, you did it. Support.
Echoing.
Okay.
Discussion.
We don't really vote on these, we just move them forward or not.
Right.
No.
So anyways, we're on item number 5, so discussion is open, so, I know you have a limit on what you can spend, and I can't remember what that is, without going to board.
Spending is $50,000. Essentially, I can make a budget amendment to that degree, but I'd still have to follow purchasing policy for, or procurement requirements. 25,000 for equipment purchases, 50,000 for non.
And what was the policy number? I kind of quickly that you brought up earlier.
Oh.
I don't.
It's in one, policy 101, the personnel policy, the non-represented
I get it.
personnel manual.
So page 1
Okay,
dash. And
and I would really,
paragraph F.
I really want to change that policy. I think it's insane for us to try to make these decisions and we don't know the business of what's going on.
I agree with that statement, but I also would back that with, our directors have a budget that they're following and, the hire, within a range that we've given them already is a common practice anyway in the business world. And it gives, trust in our directors.
I've been promoting that for,
Yeah,
I've been
right.
here trying to get that in there, not to take any far away, but I'm still not sure why we're making decisions on hiring and firing when we don't have the information. I understand it's in the policy. And there
That's
should be a
why.
limit to it.
But it's your policy.
I know,
Right.
that's why.
If you believe there should be changes.
Changes in it. I
Mhm.
think it causes more.
Who brings forward a change in policy like this? Through the
Admin.
subcommittee, okay, so.
Admin usually.
So what's?
So generally that would come through finance and administration. Generally, when admin has a policy issue, they bring forward, it goes through the finance and administration
What's
committee.
the admins? What's your opinion on this?
At first, it scares the heck out of me, but it goes both ways, right? It's in times when there's no money and cut, it's good when there's give them here's your budget, stay within budget. They have the power to hire staff within a pay grade, right?
Right.
Within that range. But if there's cuts to be made and the commissioners say, here's your new budget, the power also resides with them to cut, to stay within budget.
Yeah,
So I just, as long as there's an understanding, it's not a
Well,
fair weather policy, it's an all the time policy.
Right.
Right, that power is
Not
given.
in budget, but it's been 20 different- Never had to make wage decisions before.
Okay.
It's just seems to me that awkward. It's like I said, we don't know what the inner business, I know in my business that I had to make decisions that may not be great, but I can, I might hire some people out or I might contract others because it just makes sense, but
Right.
it seems like, I don't know.
But we make public sausage in our business though, right? I mean, all of our salaries are public, all of those decisions are public, so those decisions are made in.
Right.
I mean, that's very common across the law.
Yeah.
Universities. Wife's salary is published, right?
Right,
I'm
Um,
not talking about,
And those salaries vary drastically for professors, depending on
sure,
the salary that in the environment of that.
even the topic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even within departments, like whether they're finance or they're managerial, the number of managerial candidates that are available really, pushes what the salary they hire at. So, and that's all public. Whether the guy next to you, person next to you is making $20,000 more than you because they were just hired because the environment demanded it. It's what the world is.
Mhm.
And yes, if we have to make cuts, it does still fall on the director's side. So for us to make these scale decisions or internal scale decisions
this
for the directors, I feel it's simply us getting into their
their business.
business.
And I hate to put more. But like I said, it's always been, again, I'm maybe because this is the first real, public
Mhm.
board I've served on. It's served on quasi, but it's,
Mhm.
as a board member, we do policy, we check we make sure that the bills are paid and the finances are due, and then and in my opinion, and I told this to the last administrator too, is that if we don't like something being done, we go to the administrator, and if we don't like what the administrator is doing, then we get a new administrator at
Mhm.
and because I've seen it before, when we get into, and I think what we've been through the last couple of years, as far as with this whole hiring, firing, and see why we shouldn't be into it, because it gets ugly, and we're starting to pick winners and losers, and there's things that we have, we check off defenders and the prosecutors. I said they're different because the funding's
Mhm.
different, but yet it looks like it's Well, now it's a public, it's a public fight and everybody's complaining about it, so. I really would like to look at the policy and have it changed, Just
can take a look at
because, and
that.
I know we've had, I'll use, since he's online, I'll use the public defender. Is that he's been understaffed and his budget approves that and said, why, why can't.
Right.
You guys make that decision. I said. We're looking at legacy costs and stuff that we have to look at, but if it goes over budget, then we have to look at it, but we give him a budget to go on for a year. He submits it. So why are we telling him he can't hire somebody or fire somebody? If he's within budget, if you go over budget, then we have an issue, but I don't understand it in the end. And the same thing, he has responsibility. I'm picking on you. I hope you don't mind.
No, I appreciate it. That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
That's why he's on Zoom today.
Yeah.
You're there, just using you as an example, but if he gets fully hired and he's over budget, then he's gonna have to make decisions how to address that.
Mhm.
Sure, you'd like to be in that
Exactly.
position where we're fully staffed, I mean, that would be, one of the good things we talk about, but, I don't know what you think about this, but I'm just really tired of
No, I'm
doing this
you know,
because we gotta
bring
pick.
it.
And it looks like we're picking one side over the other, and it's just not a good look for us. Especially.
Well,
when we gotta-
I think a policy like that could work here because we have excellent department heads, right? And I think we have to keep hiring excellent department heads to make that work.
I mean, the decision to say, make a position change from, 12 to 15. I'm randomly picking numbers. Can still be laid on, because that's a wage scale change, right?
Yes,
And that involves a lot more information brought to the table. Hopefully for everyone, so,
Yeah, that is a different thing. That's reclassifications. Yep. Yep, not a hiring. Yep. Mhm.
It's not like we're, giving our breaks, so
Right.
I just think we spend,
I don't know if that's what you're.
it's more work on it.
If they're in a basket, I think.
So we have two department heads here. Which would you?
We also have, not to tell on you guys, behind the curtain, but we do have Sheriff Maine and Register of Deeds Karen Jackson on the Zoom
If
currently.
I would like to hear some.
director level, official level.
How would you guys think you could make that work? I will go, you since you're sitting here live.
Oh, yeah, sure. As I said, I brought it to you for that reason. I think it's very important for the hiring process for us to continue to attract employees, not to get ourselves back into a corner that we have to wait 2 or 3 weeks. I believe the prosecutor came to you probably 4 months or so ago and asked to hire a position within the range because he knows that this kind of thing can happen to him. He wouldn't have that potential loss of a good hire because we got to wait 2.5, 3 weeks to get to the board for that approval. So I think it's the right thing for us to be doing. You made some statements on, sort of accountability of an administrator. Right down the chain is the accountability of us. We need to make sure our budgets are managed appropriately, and we should be able to hire the best people we can within the range. We got to balance that too. We know that. I think, I've got 2 other inspectors in there. I got a guy that's been with me for 15 years, who's at the top of the scale. And if I bring somebody in who's, at the top of the scale day one, I got to balance that within my own office, within my own employees.
And you're gonna know the nuances of that so much more than the board.
Exactly. We don't want that. I don't want to create that chaos for myself. So I'm going to protect us in the county in that as part of the leadership. team. So I'm explicitly in favor of us moving this policy.
Now, how many steps do we have within a level?
Essentially 6, because there's a start and then there's a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year, a 4 year, a 5 year.
There's the
Scale. I think I've seen that.
And then now understand that's just non-represented employees, but that's the only policy that we're talking about right now. Not that it wouldn't
put it, and this is just for
Fact.
discussion, which I often do.
Union, please don't think that.
Don't mean that I'm in favor of it or not, but I always like to throw stuff out for discussion, so. If you expanded the steps to allow more movement within a pay grade, would that change the narrative any, or as far as?
I think that opened up the options. I know in the last wage study, we collapsed them, but that doesn't mean that it works better now to expand them out. I know in recent negotiations, we've considered those kind of tactics or strategies. It puts more options on the
There's
table.
more option within that, it has to go up to a grade level, then it come to the board, but if you
Mhm.
be allowed more, I just
Maybe.
throwing out there.
Maybe.
So we have steps by years, but you would add steps in between for hiring,
We always,
essentially.
some of the other groups I've worked with before is you had stuff where it wasn't high necessary years. They were, but there was also ability to move up grade
Like
levels.
performance based.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, one was like almost 35% of their salary could be performance pay, so. So some of that they could move up within that system.
I think the policy as described, we would leave that up to the department head or elected official, how whatever,
That's what I'm.
you know,
thinking
strategy they wanted to use
Within that.
to determine, yeah.
Within the pay grade, for example,
Right.
15, there would be a
A
big
larger
range.
range that you'd have more control of.
I think it would be great for multiple reasons. The reason I bring this forward is because of the attraction process. I've said this from day one, when we collapse that scale down to 5, we have zero incentive to retain employees. After 5 years, you're vested, you can take the county's retirement with you, and you have no guaranteed raises coming to you other than cost of living. And so we shortened the time frame to retain an employee
Mhm.
here. So I think that's bad for expanding.
And
the
I think
scale.
we matched the 5 years to the 5-year DC vesting, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like we went, hey,
Yeah, They came at the same time, but yes, I believe they.
when we shrunk it, I think we took it down to 5 because of the vesting period. Most people stay 5 years to get
Right.
vested.
And I'm thinking it's gonna change the vesting side of it up, you know.
Mhm, right, oh, right.
The 5-year vesting. But then to look at it, okay, I'm vested, I'm at the top of the scale, I have no movement, I'm 27 years old, I'm gone, I'm hitting the road, I have nowhere to move from here
Yeah.
within the organization, so. I brought this forward as an attraction component, this piece that I'm talking about, I think the piece that you're bringing up helps us with a retainment component.
Right, and after you hit 5, there's no, unless
There's
you
no
go,
incentive for me.
unless you go up to another grade level.
I'm at the top with my PTO, I'm at the top with my vacations, I'm at, all that stuff right down the line, I'm just at the very, no growth potential left in me.
I mean, it makes it a little more complicated, but I think it does give a little more. And then again, you guys are responsible for your budgets, so you don't take that in turn, but you have that
Yeah.
option, so.
Even when we
Just
were
threw it
at-
out there.
When we were at a 10-year, we still only had the first 5 pay, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, you got nothing. You got something at 10. So a different way you could adjust it is to offer longevity pay over certain periods to employees, which would help with the retainment component.
Mhm.
The only reason I brought that up is because, like I said before, it was very rare in some of the other groups that I've dealt with is that we asked for an increase, but because they had the range there, the department heads could move them along where they thought they needed some incentives and a lot of it had to do with incentives and stuff. This way you could move somebody that's really a mover and a shaker up,
Right.
but yet.
Regardless of a fiscal year
Yeah.
change or
But
just
going
when it
up to
made
a pay
sense.
change,
Yeah.
it was really a big deal where I came from. That's why maybe I had such a rough time with it because it's so rare. Now we seem to be doing it all the time, so.
But
I
understand
apologize for-
that power would still vest with the board to take a position and say, this position isn't a grade
Yes.
7, it's a grade 8.
But-
That still resides with the board. Mhm.
Flow within that.
Yeah.
And to negotiate, figure out strategies that you need to retain people or not. Maybe, incentivize somebody that you think might be leaving because they're a valuable part of the team and you don't want to lose them, but.
Right.
And now you've got a budget to work within to hire somebody on early if you can
then-
afford that, right? To train with them.
And the
it's
extent
a nice
to
thing.
bump up a grade would be greater because that's, once you get into that next grade, then you have a bigger, so it might be a retention deal. So once you do move up, you have more opportunities to move up during that pay grade period. So there's
Right.
more, forward thinking, there's more reason to stay because you have a more opportunity.
Yeah.
As long as, like I said, as long as that they're becoming,
Yep.
that it fits within the budget.
Provide those employees that incentive, and you'll get employees that will do better work because of it, because they want to move through the system and they have a longer period to move through the system. So you're gonna retain them and they're gonna work better for you, harder for you potentially.
I don't know, just throwing it out there. And like I said, I had these all before you came in here, so it's kind of strange. Because I was coming in here and I said,
It's a good
this
sign.
is just crazy. And I said, it's not working the way it is. I don't think very well. So I don't think anybody's happy with this current system. So not that we're gonna.
Figure
change
out what's
anything,
best for the
but we
community.
need, I would like to look at it seriously and try to come to a situation where, department could put input on it. I'm not sure what the process, I don't like to change a policy willy-nilly, so.
Mhm.
I don't know what the process is anyways, but
I would think the next step would be to put a discussion on finance agenda.
Okay.
To just to have the same discussion we had here and see where it leads. Usually, we'll have a recommendation, right, associated with that discussion, but I think it's just open discussion and the policy in front of us and crossing out and figuring what it says and, what we want it to say, sending it to legal to make sure our labor attorney is good with the policy change and then to full board.
I will stick around.
It doesn't help Tom's immediate issue. That is a little bit of a battleship, item, right? Changing policy, so.
Right.
We're on time.
If I could add two quick things.
Yeah.
that I'll do. One is, I would like to see this piece move as quickly as we can. The other part, like having different scales and things, I think it's great for us, but it's gonna take us a longer process to get through, but the ability for us to hire within that scale is pretty easy and simple. I can write that language today, present it to you, and you tweak it how you need and move it around. I think we can move it quickly. I think it's valuable because Tom's got one, I've got one that I'm in the midst of, and I know others have the same issue. So I would like to see that if possible, move as quickly as we could. And then, two is, I would be more than willing to stick around for finance today and just open public discussion, have the discussion we had here if you would like. That's up to you.
Thrilled about moving policy that quick. We've got enough chawing on finance today as it is, so I don't think we need to hurry this out of our normal
I'm
process.
not asking you to.
If this was an item on the agenda, maybe, but the way I just, it doesn't even feel right to
Yeah.
ram policy, right?
What I'm asking is not for us to go through, it's just to have the same discussion I had with this committee, with that committee.
Well, you're certainly welcome to come
Well, I don't want
to
do it.
committee at public comment this morning, obviously.
Yeah, understood.
I would just like to bring it up. I don't want any policy, but I'd like the finance to understand it. Too bad and then maybe I'll have to talk with,
Yeah.
with
Plug in the ear.
Jim and Terry later, but.
Perfect,
So they're not, but just to get the discussion forward, not for any policy change, but
right.
at least get something moving, get
Mhm.
people thinking about.
Then we can formulate that recommendation. Next Wednesday, staff reports will be due for the next round, right? So we can formulate a recommendation over the next week,
Yeah.
get that in finance for next round, right? That's.
Do we have anybody on that like to make a comment before we move forward? I know we're still talking about your issue.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how you want me to address it specifically. If we want to, go forward with the policy change rather than requesting mine right now, I guess, I don't know.
We just move this forward
Yeah,
to the work session if Commissioner, because we kind of discussed,
right.
yeah, I'm sorry. So we're just, unless you have a problem with that, I think we'll just move this forward because I think it needs to be discussed
Right.
at the work session.
Sure.
If
You already have a motion and a support.
we have a motion and a support. I don't know if you want
We might get to vote.
to. Or not, we gotta know what's going on here.
Get ready.
I don't know any more we can say on it. And I didn't know if we still have the sheriff, Karen on there.
No, they dropped off. No, I'm kidding. Yes, they are both there.
I don't blame them.
They are both on.
Would
so.
they like to comment before we move out of this, before we do a vote? Okay, okay, so if you don't have any more comments, Prosecutor Houseman, I'm gonna ask for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. It's been moved and supported that we move this forward to the work session. Is there any more discussion on this issue? Oh, we already,
I thought Mr. Newport did an excellent job presenting.
he did an excellent.
Well, if nothing
Said
else,
nothing.
then at full board, this will initiate that conversation, right?
Say, I do like the change in wage scale, but I think that can be easily tied to our wage study
Mhm.
section. To come out, I mean, there's no reason to like redo that before we've got all that information, so I think that's a separate. Move forward, right?
Yeah, I think just get it out there so the other commissioners and our
Right,
administrator has a chance to chew it over a little bit.
right,
Mhm.
but those two items, staying within the wage scale and completely redoing the wage scale, I think are
Yeah.
two different topics, but
Mhm.
that to move forward.
Mhm.
It's too complicated to tie them together.
I'm gonna say the motion has passed.
It did,
We're
it
gonna-
did. Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Let me see, where are we at?
It's a nice light one
Number
right
6
there.
is discussion
We're flying.
regarding the possibility of public defender's office transitioning from a county department to a nonprofit agency. So this is discussion, so we really don't need to move this forward unless you want to come to the meeting, but we will open it up. I know we had discussions on this already, so.
Yeah, so we had a discussion about this 2 weeks ago. Basically to give kind of a rundown is back when the county did a feasibility study when MIDC was first implemented. The feasibility study came back and said public defender's office was the way to go, but it was further delineated that there was a idea for a 75-25 split of cases, which was done in anticipation of those caseload standards, or a 50-50 split between the office and the contract. At the same time that our feasibility study was done, a feasibility study was done for Saginaw County as well. They formed a public defender's office, but the other option presented was a nonprofit. So there were two options presented, either being a county department or becoming a nonprofit agency. And so for the past almost 5 years, 5 years in September, we've operated as a county department. But I know there's been questions at board meetings that I've been about, is it time to take a look at this and see if this is the right way to go? Is there other options? Personally, I don't think going back to a contract-based system is a good idea, because if you look across the state, the costs for a contract-based system are significantly higher than they are for a public defender's office, be it a county department or a nonprofit. I think the benefits to looking at switching it to becoming a nonprofit outweigh the negatives. I think there's opportunities to get other funding sources besides MIDC. As a nonprofit, we could apply for 2% grants. We could apply for outside funding to help cover some of those cases that we don't cover. The neglect and abuse. We will start handling juvenile delinquency here in the next year or two, but until that time, if we had outside funding, we could potentially have an attorney that could handle that. There's a lot of different avenues that we could go. And I think it could potentially help navigate the attorney shortage that isn't going anywhere soon. I went to a career fair down at Cooley Law School on Thursday, and I was surprised at the number of their first year students. I think it was 191. When I went to law school at Cooley back in 2007, it was well over 1,000 was the entering class. So it's not even that we have young students coming up through law school that are going to be able to fill those positions. So I really think we have to start looking outside the box to help solve that, what's going to be a crisis, you know, with all these new standards regarding caseloads and the number of hours worked and everything like that. We're going to, we're at the edge of a cliff. And you know, we've got one contract attorney retiring this year. You know, the other one's running for circuit court judge. There's a very real possibility in a few months we might not have anybody on our contract. And so we need to come up with ways that we can still make this work. And I think that going the nonprofit route is a good way of doing that. I met with Saginaw Bay underwriters on Friday about benefit packages to kind of get that ball rolling to see how that would all shake out. I've got to sit down with them again the next week or so to kind of get the quote and see how that all transpire. But I really think that, you know, given the way that it could work with seeking out other funding, right, I think we could really build this office into something much greater than it already is.
Okay, couple questions. Now you were talking about partnering up. Is that still something you're looking at or something that would be the nonprofit?
I think given my discussions with MIDC, I think that's the way they see this going, is that these funding units, counties, whatever you want to call them, are going to start partnering up, and you're going to start seeing these regional hubs of public defenders all over the place in order to help solve that problem. I have talked to, when I first sat down with Saginaw County to kind of see how their program worked. They're the ones that gave me their cost analysis and gave me all the contacts for benefits and things like that. I've talked to the Midland Public Defender because he wanted to start a public defender's office, but the county doesn't. So a nonprofit route may be the way that they end up going. And I know that Clare and Gladwin are in the process of forming a public defender's office, so they might be interested. The thing that would need to get worked out in that aspect of it is you need a lot of collaboration between different courts to make that work. But being a nonprofit, could, say Midland has a case, right now we reach outside the contract all the time in order to get coverage for cases because we don't have the bodies. And so is it a situation where, hey, Midland would be in the same position? Hey, I don't have enough attorneys for something. Can one of the people from your nonprofit come over and cover a case? That might be a good jumping off point for where that could happen. So yes, I do envision it going that way. I don't think that's something that would happen like this funding year. Because I think it's one of those things where you want to get established, and then as other funding units kind of see how that works, and like I said, the collaboration will be the biggest part of it.
I got a couple more questions. Sorry, Commissioner, if you don't. Yeah, this is the burning questions I wanted to get in there. So if you did a collaboration with other counties or something, like what would be some of the shared, like the library, would that be like under one cost that you could share that because that's an internet deal, or how much would you reduce duplication if we're in separate? Is there a lot of what I'm looking for is
Redundant?
what you're required to do, because everyone's required. How many of those requirements could be combined? Is there a lot of savings there or not necessarily? I'm not talking.
I don't know, because they might, there could be. I mean, each county is still tied to their local share, right? But then, our expert and investigator line item is set by how many cases we have. And so every funding unit is the same. They have, $32,000 for experts and investigators or whatever the dollar amount is. Would they, if you were one office, would that be then just $32,500 32.5 for the office, or would each funding unit be tied to 32.5 total? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay,
I know of only one.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, my last question is, and then I'll have to put it just Wayne to have it, is that if you do, you go to private or a nonprofit, do you foresee you being able to get beyond your scope as far as using resources within that consortium? Like, let's say, going after funding for, I'll use something just out of there, for juvenile detention facilities, you could build one, get grant to build one in one area where all three of them goes to one area. Would that be something where you could get into, where you could get a little bit outside your scope if you're a nonprofit, or would you be pretty well structured where you're stuck where you're at now?
No, and I
understand what
think
I'm getting
that's
at?
I think that's the most attractive part of it for me is that you could seek that outside funding to, we've got like the probate contract right now. The two attorneys I spoke of, one's retiring, one's running for judge. I don't know who else is on that contract, but we could get funding to potentially help cover those cases. I think there's a lot of different opportunity. You have to be very careful with it. It's a lot more accounting on my end. Because you have to be able to manage time and, this person, okay, they're doing the MIDC stuff at this time, but they're doing non-MIDC stuff at this time, or whether it's a whole other attorney or whatever the case may be. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I am aware of one other county that does it as a collaboration. It's up in the UP. It's Keweenaw, Baraga, and Houghton County. They have a tri-county public defender's office up there. That's the only one I'm aware of. I take that back. I think Wexford, Missaukee County is also a joint, but they might be a joint circuit as well with their court. And they have the kind of regional setup already.
I'm done.
I'm really in a gathering of information stage right now. So I don't see a lot of benefits for like specific detailed questions. What I do see is that I agree with the assessment, and I think we should go ahead and think about deciding on that we should move forward, albeit it's government, so it's slow, move forward to what we would envision in the end as a nonprofit that is an umbrella over 3 or 4 counties, a single organization. And obviously the internals and specifics of how that works, whether you have to get an administrator and everything is, would be worked out internally, because it's then a nonprofit and we are just giving you our MIDC approval.
And the $240,000 share.
Right.
Yep.
We have the
Yep.
share, we have a public defender's office that's nonprofit. All we're doing is moving this over, and all this deciding on your wages and numbers of personnel is out of our hands.
Well,
And potentially, you have room to grow because of the outside funding. So that's what I see we should be moving towards, and I would be supporting that effort.
I think the real tricky part will become if you do create a regional or a consortium at that time, that as an individual county, we're still required to meet those standards separately.
Right.
So if one county does not meet the standards that's in the consortium, how does that affect the whole?
Well, they're controlled by the
By the
organization.
Overriding, yeah.
Overriding
Which is under contract, right?
Should be more
So
streamlined.
that's
Yep.
really an internal MIDC issue.
Yep.
And not, I don't think that, I really see that we would see very little backlash. It would be like an internal adjustment or correction for the nonprofit and the MIDC. right?
I'm sure we have some lawyers that can write up the
Right.
the agreement that we're.
Oh, yes.
We're not liable for
No.
what some other within the consortium does, which I can't see that happening, but. You know, it just has to be, I'm sure it'll be a complicated agreement that's not one page, so.
Now, in addition to the local share, you know, we do receive from Public Defender's Office through MIDC, the indirect costs,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So understand that would go away in a nonprofit scenario because we're not gonna be running their payroll, we're not gonna be fixing their IT or managing their
Paying their
funds.
benefits.
Exactly, or paying their benefits. Yeah,
Right.
so I,
Unless they decide to contract through the county, that one of the counties do all that for them.
they, certainly a nonprofit could do that, and I would
it
think if
would
they
be
stayed,
profitable for them, because as a nonprofit, you have a lot of avenues for
To get with that.
low cost benefits.
Mhm,
So
hard to say.
it's,
If they stayed at Health Parkway, then they would pay the county rent, right? So there would be an offset of losing that indirect cost if we were to lose the whole thing.
Right.
So just some nuances there.
Not there yet.
No,
right,
no, but I
right,
just want you to
Yeah.
understand what is lost, what is gained.
Sure,
Mhm.
these will become more clear as we get closer, you get more information. Sure, we'll have a better idea where this is going, so. No, I'm all in favor, I think it's a great idea. I know it's a lot of work for you.
Yes.
But, I think for the going forward,
That's for the-
that's why you're in public office, right? So we do appreciate the extra effort you're putting into this, we know, I know how much work you're putting into it, we do appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
you're building something.
Yes. Yes. What a great slogan.
Okay. Any more discussion on this? If we're all
Just
set?
discussion, yeah.
Okay, with that, I will move right down to announcements. I have nothing.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, at this time, we'll do one more call to the public. Is there anybody that would like to make another comment? Is there anybody online?
We do still have Sheriff Maine and Register Deeds Jackson online, but I do not see their hands raised at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to end the call to the public and adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Good discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tom. Have a good day.